Hello, my name is Thomas. Welcome to British Culture Albion Never Dies. Joining me today is Donnie Waldron, who hosts the podcast Quantum of History. He lists his top Bond films, the worst Bond films, and we talk about a few of the ones in the middle. I hope you enjoy this podcast.
Okay, we're recording. Donnie, thank you very, very much for joining me today.
What's going on, Thomas? Good to be back. I'm always trying to get you on my podcast, so it's nice to be on yours too. Your 5-to-1 ratio is about what it should be. You have way more stuff to offer than I do.
So we're here today to talk about your James Bond rankings.
Oh, I'm excited. This is always one of the most fun topics to do because, I do a lot of the history stuff and a lot of research and that, but this is just straight spitball and having fun talking about how bad A View to a Kill is and how everybody's wrong about Honor Majesties, which is always the well I like to go to. But no, anytime we get to talk Bond, it's a good time, especially with old TFC.
The notorious TFC, is it?
Notorious. I like that.
Some podcasts will start with your favorites and so on, but I feel we can just go straight to the bottom of the barrel. I feel we're okay.
For sure. Oh, it may be. It's one I can find something redeeming about almost every single James Bond film. I find a certain scene I like, a certain moment I like, some character I like. Usually I can find some kind of redeeming quality for every single James Bond film, except for one. A View to a Kill. I can't. There's just absolutely nothing I can stand about this movie. I'm embarrassed. And if somebody said, "Hey, I've seen a James Bond movie, A View to a Kill," I'd be like, "Please don't hold that against." We've all had bad days. All right, this is just one we want to forget about. We want to forget it never happened. I try to block it out. I try to take, hard drugs to try to block that part of my memory out, to try to not see those scenes with Roger Moore in the tub or everything. I can't do it. Nothing redemption about that.
It is the most 1980s movie ever. It's full on 1980s.
Oh my God. It's like 1980s, but I just can't. Moore is terrible in it. Even Christopher Walken, who I love in almost every movie. I can't do it. There's just nothing. Mayday's terrible. Even the scene like Paris, what a great time. That would be a great place to have a Bond. Nope, terrible. Boom. I can't. The fire truck scene in San Francisco, I can't do any of it.
Oh wow, okay. So it seems like hand down, we have one Bond film with no redeeming features.
No, I mean it's the only one. It's the only one of all the movies I just cannot do. I can't do it.
Okay, even with the snowboarding and the Beach Boys.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, the problem isn't the snowboarding. The problem is the Beach Boys. I love snowboarding. I do it all the time. I grew up snowboarding. I never listened to when I was snowboarding? The Beach Boys. Okay, talk about a juxtaposition of things like Beach Boys, Antarctica, snowboarding. I mean. I'm sure when Brian Wilson was writing the Beach Boys songs, he wasn't thinking, man, this is going to be a great snowboard tune. I can't.
Okay, so we have that out of the way. No View to the Kill. I don't feel I can convince you on this
one. No. I've never had anybody even try too hard. Sometimes there's some things I've heard some influencers or some content creators say, I can find some things in it, and every time I'm like, no, you're not. You're not gonna. You can't polish that turd.
There's Tibbet. I like Tibbet. That interplay is hilarious. He's carrying all the briefcases and suitcases, and Roger Moore is like, "Oh, I'll help you," and he just takes the umbrella.
Yeah. I mean, there's some campy stuff in there, some very Roger Moore-esque stuff. But even I feel like throughout the entire time, Roger Moore's like, I am just getting paid for this. I'm just gonna have fun with this. Whatever. I can't believe you guys are paying me for this. I'm putting zero effort in. It's like when you have a job and you put in your 2-week notice, but you got to work those last 2 weeks. I feel like Roger Moore put his 2 weeks notice in after Octopussy, and they're like, "Hey, I'll tell you what, we'll give you an extra 3 months pay if we just kind of hang around." He's like, "Yeah, whatever, cool." Watch how much I mess this company up while I do this.
Okay. So going up in the barrel, the second lowest presumably has one redeeming feature then.
Yes. Yeah, there are some things if I'm in the mood and I can I've gone back to this more than once. All right, let's say that. I've never fully finished A View to a Kill. I was hanging out with Kyle Barba one time, and we were having a couple cocktails at the end of the night. He swore he was going to get me to watch the entire View to a Kill. Couldn't do it. This one, I still can. The one it is, Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh,
It is.
okay.
It is really bad. There's, Blowfield is awful. A lot of the storyline is awful. But I can take something. And Tiffany Case, I mean, come on, that's a great spot.
Yes.
But Diamonds Are Forever, my second worst. However, on a weird, quirky moment, I can go back and watch and be like, okay, that was tolerable.
Yeah. I feel it's a really good brain in a jar film. Like Bond ticks all the boxes. It's the plot I'm not quite sure what's happening much of the time. Like, what are Mr. Wint and Kit doing and why?
even Mr. Wint and Kid, they're not bad characters. I don't think they're bad
No,
henchmen. I mean, they bring a little bit of their acting is pretty well done. I think that little playoff and the ending is kind of funny, but even them in the helicopter when they have the all that, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't mind a lot of it. There's not something that I find repulsive about Diamonds Are Forever. Just it's not good. But it's kind of got that Barbie movie feel to it. Like you're not sure why people are going to see the Barbie movie, but hey, I could see why it could check a box.
Yeah. Do you find it being American set is an influence? Because both of your bottom of the barrel so far have been American set.
Yeah, maybe it is that it just lacks the exoticism of a Bond's location. Vegas isn't very, very good. Actually, like the book is started in Saratoga Springs, and I grew up not far away from there. The spas and that. So I like the book. Actually, the book isn't that great either, but I like it a little more than the movie. The movie is just. And Vegas at the time, have you been to Vegas recently?
Never.
You've never been to Vegas? You were in San Diego and you didn't make the trip to Vegas?
we didn't know.
Bruh, you missed the ball on that one.
Cost of gas.
But I do like old Fremont Street. I like the fact that there was still cigarette smoke, and I remember the first time I went to Vegas, and it was in the mid 2000s. And it was a good time. When you went to Fremont Street, they still had the old style light bulbs on there. The girls dancing still looked like they were depressed. It was still cigarette smoke in the air. It still just felt seedy. Even some of the old slot machines still looked. It had like the vibe to it. And you look at it now, it looks like a New Jersey mall. You could go down there, and it just looks. It's just so commercialized now. It has none of the grit. So that is kind of, even though I don't like Vegas as a setting.
Different type of depressing, isn't it? When it's cookie cutter commercialism.
It is. It's very drone. It has no character. It feels like there's no story behind it. You can't even see that, hey, things have happened here. People have had experiences here. Here it just feels like, I could get this exact same experience anywhere in suburbia. So yeah, it feels like a mall to me now. So I do like that part of the Vegas setting. The other settings in Diamonds Are Forever, though, they don't do it for me.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I have to say, originally when I saw it, as a child, I think they go to Amsterdam, and I was like, that's literally like a short ferry ride. I was like, well, are they saving money? I mean, when you look at most of the Bond locations, you think, did they just spend all the money on Sean Connery and his wig, and then they just couldn't go anywhere, just down the road and where people get married and.
Basically, yeah, exactly. It felt like a budget cutting one on that one.
So, your third worst. I thought we'd do the bottom three, then maybe the top. But
this is where I actually start splitting hairs a little bit about which ones I'm liking the least. But I'm gonna have to go with Moonraker. Okay. And there are parts of Moonraker I actually enjoy. I like the beginning part. I think towards the end it starts to fall apart. I don't find Hugo Drax particularly interesting. I find him much more interesting in the book. I don't know why they made him dull. They made him so dull in the movie. I don't find him interesting. I don't find his with the mist, the shooting, that whole scene. But then you have this most vicious scene with the dogs where they go and she gets eaten, killed alive by a dog. She's like, what? You're not having any consistency in the tone of what your movie what you're trying to portray. So you've got the serious tone, then you've got the serious detective, and then all of a sudden you're in space, and then you throw in Jaws because he worked so well in the previous movie. You're like, oh, we'll throw him in here again, which makes no continuity with why is Jaws just a freelance mouth fighter? I don't get this. And what a terrible henchman to have a 7-foot guy with metal teeth doing your assassinations. Like you're not seeing that. Look at even Brazil. You can see him a mile away over the people. Overall, I think that's the biggest problem I have with Moonraker is it lacks an inconsistency. It doesn't pick a lane. It doesn't pick a tone. It bounces back and forth. And more, he doesn't strike me as I know Roger Moore has a place in most Brits' hearts, but for me, he's not my Bond.
No. Okay. So this gets to who is your Bond, and I feel maybe we should ping to the other end of the spectrum and ask your top 3.
Again, I always say that for me there are 6 perfect 10 James Bonds.
Okay.
I find 6 of the movies are flawless to me. I love them. I rewatch them all the time. Some of them I've seen probably 50, 60, 70 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I put them on in the background while I do work. Sometimes if I'm here, I'll just throw it on. Not necessarily mean sitting there watching, but just having it on in the background is like, something like that. So my perfect 10s are GoldenEye, the first 4, Sean Connery's, and Casino Royale. Okay. So you want me to start with my favorite? Or you want to start with my third favorite?
Ooh, I'll start with your favorite. Let's go 1, 2, 3.
Straight from the top. So this one always my favorite James Bond. It's always hard. It's always between 2. Where I'm splitting hairs between my perfect 10s, and it's between From Russia with Love and Casino Royale. And sometimes I can't decide which one. But today I've been thinking about this since we talked about the first coming on for this. I've been contemplating it, really thinking it through. It's gonna have to be From Russia with Love. My favorite James Bond movie, From Russia with Love. It has everything that I like, and I remember it was such a breath of fresh air to watch an old movie the first time I saw From Russia with Love, not expecting much, and then seeing it and just seeing how well it's done, the pacing, the story, the train, the locations, everything, the henchmen, all of it. It is, to me, a perfect James Bond film and a perfect film. So for mine, my favorite one, my go-to, From Russia with Love.
Thank you for my new intro.
Yeah.
Totally agreed on this, by the way. I think you know that.
Yeah, I know how much you love From Russia with Love too. It is. When people put it down in the middle of the pack or at the bottom of the pack, I never understand, because to me, this is what I like about James Bond. It's what I follow. It's what I like about the book so much. It's what I like about the movies so much, is that I have this romanticism about the Cold War era where you're not using technology, you don't even know how to get from one place to another with phones, no transportation, no anything. You really just are being resourceful, talking to people, finding your way around, navigating, knowing the culture, immersing yourself, and finding your contacts, and getting your mission done based on what you can come up with on the fly in a place where it's hostile towards you. And I just love that part.
Fantastic. So I feel that we're totally agreed, and I shall have to take you around Istanbul one day.
I would love that. That would be like a dream part, to just like have somebody who knows Istanbul well. So I've only flown through there. I've never actually immersed myself in the city.
I have a guide in my head. Your second, what would be your second?
My second one, I know I just said I go back and forth between Casino and From Russia for my favorite. But there's also a third contender, which does always, I'll tell you, this is my most watched James Bond. It always competes with whether I like this one better or not, with Casino. In the end, I'm going to say it's going to be Casino as my second favorite. I think the modern take on it, I think the beginning, the pre-title, everything about it is flawless. I think it's a flawless movie. And then the best scene in any James Bond film, and really my favorite scene, just of straight dialogue speaking, it's between Casino Royale and Natural Born Killers. Just like straight dialogue, acting. But my favorite scene is that train scene with Vesper and in Bond, where you have that, you naturally grew up thinking people dress like that, but you wear it with such disdain. Like, amazing. And even where he says, how do you like your lamb? How's the lamb? Skewered. Like, just, it is perfect dialogue. It is perfectly played, perfectly paced. So it is, to me, a flawless movie. Sometimes it drags along a little bit at the end with the sinking city. I almost feel like I've got 3 endings rather than one good one. If I was going to split hairs and have any kind of criticism of the movie, that would be it. But other than that, fantastic, flawless movie.
And for me, that ending issue was really sold by Quantum of Solace. I watched it as a double bill. Then it's brilliant.
I bet. That's awesome.
Yeah. Casino Royale is hugely popular in, let's say, the fan community, the fan base.
Yeah. It seems like that one and On Her Majesty are the 2 that the fan base puts ahead of everybody. And then I'll talk to people who aren't really big James Bond fans. Like my age, a lot of people will go towards Pierce Brosnan movies. And Skyfall a lot, I think, is one where if you're a cursory Bond film fanatic, or if you're on the edge of kind of liking Bond films, I think probably Skyfall is another one you hear a lot that people love.
Yeah, I feel Skyfall got to the point where people loved it as a movie, not just as a Bond movie.
Yeah, and it is, of all the Craig era, it's the standalone. It's the one that you can jump into and not know anything about James Bond and like it.
Absolutely.
Actually, Skyfall is my 7th favorite. It just misses. It just misses the top 10 flawless.
I must admit, because I seem to be extremely unusual on this. When I first saw Casino Royale, it didn't grab me at all. It didn't.
Really?
I watched it, and to be honest, throughout the whole film, I was thinking, "Where's Pierce Brosnan? Like this,
yeah.
What is this? And where's the big thing at the end?" And it actually grew on me over time. I'd say this is one that has steadily risen up in my own rankings over time. I start to think more and more of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's the community influencing me or just me perhaps changing over time and seeing it differently. Or reading books.
Your second is The Man with the Golden Gun, right? Something like that?
Oh, yeah.
I know that's your quirky. The Man with the Golden Gun it's got some redeeming quality, but certainly not cracking my top 10.
Fair enough.
And I'll give you my third. I guess I'll give you my third favorite. And this is the movie that I watched the most. This is the one that stays in the DVR or DVD player, or I guess it's Blu-ray. I don't even know. I'm so far behind. I'm when you're getting old and you're not quite sure what the medium is that they're using.
Put in the Cinefilm projector.
Yeah, the one they scratch on the Pantheon. But yeah, it's gonna be Dr. No. I love Dr. No. I think that it is for escapism or for just enjoying, again, the romanticism of you have to go to Jamaica, find your contacts, find the guy in the harbor who knows everybody, right? I mean, that's how you make contacts. That's how you become a good detective, is to go find the people who know the area best. And James Bond does that. And Felix Leiter, best Felix Leiter by far. There hasn't even been a close second. And their dynamic and their almost equal, hey, we're on a singular mission. We're both kind of figuring out each other, but we don't know each other. But there's no technology. We kind of have to use our resources, use the paper, use the intuition, trust your gut. And then the Jamaica scene itself, and Honey Rider, amazing Bond girl. Everything about Dr. No, I absolutely love. It's still a perfect 10. And it's the one that I watch the most. It's been in my DVD player the most. If I want to just have a Sunday where I just want to throw something on, just kind of escape and see a cool world, it's Dr. No.
Brilliant. And I can say this was for a long time my least watched Bond film.
Really?
I don't watch them a huge amount anyway. Like, they're not on repeat on my player, and that would be at the bottom until I've listened to you and I've listened to your podcast on it.
Oh, really?
And it was so interesting that it kind of, again, that's one that's been steadily rising.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad I advocated for Dr. No.
You have.
The Bay of Pigs invasion. They're always 10 steps ahead, right? It's always I just love that movie. Connery is great in it. I just love it.
And it probably has helped. I looked into that because my favorite ever typo in a British newspaper is the Times of London, which should know better, published a piece on Castro and referred to the bag of pigs incident. Funny what one letter can do.
Right? How inflammatory, right?
You can see what went wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Dr. No, yeah, as I say, that's become much more watched as a result of your podcast.
That's good. Anytime I can advocate for people to watch Doctor No, that's the one. If I was to show someone an old, if they say, "Hey, I want to look at the Connerys," I would probably show them that one over From Russia with Love, because I just think that From Russia with Love for me is so high because it hits me specifically, because I have such a romanticism for the Cold War era, for that kind of espionage, for that feel. But if I was to show them Fall on Modern Eyes, I think that probably Doctor No would be the one that just translates to Modern Eyes.
Fair enough. And for Modern Eyes, you might not be showing them You Only Live Twice, where Bond takes the person of a Japanese fisherman and is died.
Yeah. No, we're not showing that one. Other than I don't think there's really any themes that wouldn't translate well to it. So I think that's the one I would show the most.
Next one down.
Next one down. Oh boy, now we're really splitting hairs. So we've got 3 left that I think that are perfect 10s. Goldfinger, Goldeneye, and Thunderball. The first 4 Connerys to me are still perfect 10s. I love them. So for 4, this is going to have to give the nostalgia bonus. It's going to have to give the little 11-year-old Donnie gets his first N64 game, gets his first time, has amazing times, then becomes an adult, and then just pounds adults in the video game. Just line them up, just mow them down, baby. 10-0 wins. But no, it's going to be Goldeneye. I know that's kind of. The music is bad. The score really takes away from it in the beginning, but then it gets better towards the end. If you take away that first car scene, take away that score, but even the pre-title sequence, you've got everything sneaking into the facility, the bungee jump, dive. It's got all the great Bond villains. Xenia, again, as an 11-year-old seeing this for the first time, realized I didn't want to play with Legos anymore. I wanted to play with Xenias. She was. I just love this movie, and I think that it probably is more. Because when people are first introduced and they first fall in love with their first Bond movie, I think that always carries into them and into adulthood. And your favorite one growing up doesn't really go low on the ranks. But even as now, when I go revisit a GoldenEye movie or watch it again, I love the movie. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's got everything I want in it. I think Brosnan's fantastic. He may have not got, after GoldenEye, he never got really a great Bond movie afterwards. Good ones, but never that great one again. But for me, number 4, GoldenEye.
Fantastic. And it's interesting how the game did influence you. You did refer to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It heavily influenced it, I think, because as much as, when I was growing up, you didn't have, you had the VHS, but even then, you didn't always get that, or the VCR wasn't always working, or, it got staticky and all that. So the best way you could live in that world for so long was to play that video game, and we played it for hours, and it was some of my favorite memories of just hanging out with the boys, throwing down some Mountain Dews, some pizza bites, and throwing in the GoldenEye, having us all in the multiplayer, trying to beat the game, and then you get in the both. You introduce all the characters that you could use. The Odd Job, no Odd Job. How many people know Odd Job just from the multiplayer without ever seeing it? But yeah, that was, and it followed so well the movie that when you see the movie and you play the video game, you right in the area where you were watching. So I think that it truly did enhance my experience and my joy of GoldenEye, having both, so intertwined.
Obviously, so looking forward to the video game adaptation of No Time to Die or whatever.
Nothing says great video game like you fight to the end so you can kill yourself. Nothing inspires it more than death.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny. They had such a massive hit. They know the impact. But it hasn't really been a big thing since, tying in games to the films.
No. My son just finished the Batman game, Batman Arkham Knight. And in that his secret identity gets revealed. And then at the end, he blows himself up.
Oh wow! Okay.
He went very James. It was before No Time to Die came out, but it was because he wanted to protect the people he loved. Now that people knew that he was Bruce Wayne, so to protect the people he loved, he staged that he blew him in a very almost exactly like No Time to Die. He blew up his mansion with him and Alfred, making it look like everybody died at the end after this long, arduous fight. So I was like, God, this little 2010s, 2020s really liked killing off mage characters. I don't understand. It was everywhere. It was in video games. It was in Bond movies. It was in Marvel. It was everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I saw an early screening of No Time to Die, an early one in the US, and I didn't go on social media for a week. Right, I didn't want to share anything, post anything, let people enjoy and whatever. I wanted to think about what I'd seen, and to be honest, I love No Time to Die. I thought it was a fantastic film. It had a lot of things that I wanted to see, like unadapted Fleming stuff especially. And I was pretty shocked when I went on social media after a week of, this is a really interesting film, to see how upset people have been about the ending.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm like, I think I've seen pretty well every major character I can think of die on screen, in comics or whatever, at some point. It seems to be a fairly regular trope now.
Yeah, I think for me, it was the timing of when they did it, because everything is so bad. Everything was, if you had to immerse yourself in any kind of the culture, everything was fighting, everything was negative, and to have James Bond just not be the beacon of positivity that I was hoping. Yeah. When I went into it, I really wanted, like, this is the one we've been waiting for. We wait so much. I can't wait to come out feeling like a mile high after watching it, and can't wait to get on a video and rewatch it a bunch of times. And then when they gave us that ending, it was like, more crushing into all the negativity that had already been, promulgated throughout society as a whole. So for me, it was just one more thing that was just negative. And that's what really, had it been 10 years ago and this was the first one, like, wow, that was epic. I absolutely would have. And I'm sure as time fades and when audiences go back to No Time to Die 20, 30 years from now, they'll be like, I don't know why people were pissed. That was a masterpiece. I can absolutely see that growing up or raising. But for now, at the time when I first saw it, and even saying, like, God, and now we're not going to clean our palate of that movie for another God knows how many years.
Yeah.
So that's what we're left with. And it's even more frustrating that it was delayed for 3 years. And then the entire time they sat on their hands the entire time. And now there's this writer's strike and there's everything else going on. And we're not seeing a Bond film for years and years. Yeah. So we're left with that to fester.
Fair enough, yeah.
Sorry to take my attack on No Time to Die.
No, it's interesting. And it's interesting that supposedly this film was finished and locked in a vault and they made no changes during the pandemic. And there's a few questions I've heard around that. Like, how come a nanobot is being grown in a virus factory?
Oh, absolutely. There's no way they didn't. There's no way. Yeah. And the fact that it's off of Asia. Might as well call. Yeah. Safin was in Wuhan.
Yeah. I think at one point you see a map of the countries being affected, and there's one country that's not part of that.
There's a lot of questionable things in there, and I'm sure that the nanobots thing was just thrown in there afterwards. There's no way they locked that in the vault and didn't change it. I'm sure it was a virus that was being grown, and then they just kind of tried to do some careful editing and add the nanobots to try to make it not that. Absolutely, there's no way.
No, absolutely. I'd love some kind of thing where if you could, the dialogue that was edited in, you could have with the voice of like a Muppet, like maybe Beaker. So when you're watching it, you just have the Beaker beeps over it. So that's what they changed.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've gone through most of your tops, your perfect tens.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep, we got through 4 of them, right? And then so the splitting hairs, it's down to Thunderball or Goldfinger for the last of the 6 perfect tens. Okay. And I will say, for stylist, for setting the Bond, for setting how James Bond ends up going forward and kind of cementing the way that a James Bond film goes, what we want him to be, Goldfinger is going to just barely edge out Thunderball. But I love Thunderball for the reason that it is the great locations. I love the Bahamas. I love the Bond Girl. I love everything. I love Domino. I love all of that. But for me, Goldfinger just has a little bit of that because it's very slow paced, but he's along for the ride. He's there, trying to trump up what he knows, trying to trump up his role, trying to survive in any way he can, which is making himself more significant to the plot than he really is. because it really, and if Goldfinger does do the laser and kills him, and nothing happens really, he has to really throw that Hail Mary and get out there to survive him. But for me, it's going to be Goldfinger just barely edging out Thunderball.
Yeah. Again, that's one film which I kind of removed from my watching rota for a long time because I feel like it's overshown in the UK.
Oh, is it?
Any film that you see too much, you start to get fed up with, they're playing that one again. So it's a long break. I mean, a few years break from it. And then when I came back to it fresh, it was brilliant.
Yeah, you never see old Bond films in the US. Like, you'll never see a showing of Goldfinger. You'll never see that. So now that it's on Amazon, you'll see it every once in a while. Now that Prime bought it, you'll see that. But until the last year and a half, you never saw any of those old Bond films that are easily available for consumption.
Yeah, for us, it's the compulsory Christmas film, and then sometimes throughout the year they show it. But it's definitely, that's a lot of people's model of Bond.
Yeah.
Not the books, not anything else, that.
And I think if you ask somebody who doesn't know Bond very well, but kind of a little bit, they're just like, oh yeah, everyone knows Goldfinger's the best. And you're like, why is it the best? Because, well, that's what I've heard. It's the way I feel about the Beatles. I don't like the Beatles. I think the Beatles suck. I don't get the hype over the Beatles. But when people are like, what's the greatest band ever? They're like, the Beatles. Why? Name me 6 songs of the Beatles. And they're like, I don't know. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't get me on the Beatles.
we could extend this to Picasso. I'm sure it's brilliant if you're really kind of arty, but I'm like, I've seen better stuff.
Well, isn't that all of art? Like, all art paintings that you can present the story, and people want to be told what's the best. I don't think unless an art piece really moves you, people just have to have a good marketing, and if you can market the art the best, that's when it becomes legendary.
Yeah. I do love in, Goldfinger, you've got Goldfinger's assistant is played by Burt Kwok, the Asian gentleman, who then later on in You Only Live Twice is Blofeld's assistant as well.
Yeah.
He's also known in the UK as being, the Pink Panthers sidekick? So are all these guys just ringing up for an Asian sidekick? And it's like, well, we have one Asian actor in the UK. And his name is Burt Kwok.
It's like Jaws, but the same way. If you can just find the henchman or the assistant, it's like one big hiring agency that they have.
That's the job you want in the Bond universe. The guy who sends out henchmen to the big villains, right? Because there's always going to be a demand. There seems to be this endless supply.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we've got your perfect 10. We've got your bottom of the barrel. Are there any others that you'd like to talk about in the middle?
No, I just think the only other one that we talk about is just for funsies is the On Her Majesty's, because it was so, it's one of the ones that I find, like we talked about before, once one gets kind of told, or when people are like, oh, if you're really a James Bond fan, you need to know about this On Her Majesty's. And I just don't get that one at all. That was the one that I don't get. Other than that, the middle of the pack, I find, movies like The World's Not Enough, Tomorrow Never Dies, I find them to be very fun watches. They're not perfect, they're not great, but for sometimes for a little variety to throw in the DVD player, I like those. But On Her Majesty's overrated, the most overrated Bond film in the community by far. And I think maybe the most underrated one, let's say I'll go give my most underrated, I'll give it to Quantum as the most underrated. If you want to just, the action's good, the cinematography is, I know it gets a lot of the fast cuts, it gets a lot of flack for that, but I think if you pass the first quarter of the film, that whole thing calms down a little bit. The other one is Spectre. I think Spectre is a little underrated. Okay. In that, if I found the trick, and I got to credit Carl Barbo for this too. If you just shut off Spectre before the movie's over, it's a great movie. The trick to it, once the train scene's over, shut off the movie, go do something else, and you'll be like, "Oh, that was a good movie." Don't let the rest. Don't let the bad taste hit your mouth with the rest of it.
Yeah, totally agreed. Yeah, once the Rolls Royce appears, that's a good ending. You know what's going to happen next. He's just going to fight the baddie and he'll win. That's fine.
Yep, that's it. With one shot to a helicopter. Like, all right, we're gonna. And the brother thing, it falls off the rail and it falls off quickly. And then the pictures, like he just prints it off from a home printer. That's the best you could come up with. And where did you get all this time to build this elaborate thing? There's no even a poorly paid security guard wouldn't be like, dude, why are all these wires here now?
Let's say it's problematic.
Yes. But that's the trick. So yeah, anybody who's listening to this, if you really want to go back and have Spectre rise up your rankings, you see the Rolls Royce, you stop it, call it a day, and enjoy the rest of your time.
Yeah. You know what? I saw that Rolls Royce in real life, and I didn't recognize it, even though I'd just seen the film and I'd watched it a few times, because in real life, it's really bright colors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the bottom half, the red bit, is really, really bright. But apart from the desert dust, they have a really heavy filter. So everything kind of looks that same mellow color.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah, well, that's a great one. But yeah, those would be my two. And then the rest of them, yeah, I don't have anything significant to say about the rest of them. I could go through the pros and cons of them all. But those are my underrated, overrated, and my top and bottom.
Thank you very much. And the man with the golden gun is obviously still amazing. So.
That gets the Thomas bump just because you say so.
Thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoyed this podcast, do check out Donnie's Instagram account, which is Quantum of History, and of course his podcast on iTunes. Thank you.